Hey guys, so we're going to go over the quiz from yesterday. Okay, for number 1, it says use arrows to indicate the direction of particle diffusion. So we are talking about particle diffusion. The particles, the actual particles, are able to diffuse across the membranes. These are the particles, and they pass through the cell membrane, the square, and they want homeostasis. So you can count, but I do see a whole bunch on the inside. So in order to maintain homeostasis and to have an equal concentration on both sides, the particles here are going to diffuse outside. You only need to put one arrow. You could have put a bunch, but outside. Okay, here it's kind of like a little bit more similar, but I do count 3 on the inside. Let's just say 12 on the outside. So particles are going to diffuse inward. Okay? Okay. For each of the osmosis situations below, use an arrow to indicate the net movement of water. So we are not talking about particles moving, we're talking about water moving. Now, I do tell you it's 1% sugar. That means that there's 1 particle inside, 5% sugar, 5 outside. I already told you the particles are not moving, the water is moving. So water wants to go to the party. It wants to dilute the higher concentrated area so that when you dilute it, it gets to a closer and closer concentration of the less concentrated area. So water goes to the party, water is going to leave the cell. Okay, in cell A, it is going to be hyper because water is going to leave. I'll just say because it shrinks. I could write because it loses water. Okay. 1 particle versus 3, water goes to the party. Water is going to fill the cell. So it's going to become hypo because it swells, gains water, whatever you want to write. Okay. And here, when it's equal, you don't say there's no areas, there's no movement, but there is a net movement of 0. So whatever goes in, same amount comes out. This is iso because it, you could write has 0 net movement. You could say because it stays the same size, whatever you want to put. Okay. Okay, and then the cell membrane is made up of which biomolecules? It's made up of 2. So here's the cell membrane. All those little heads and tails, those are lipids. And then the protein channels, so the protein pumps and the protein tunnels, protein. And then you would not find sugar in the membrane. Why would we put something we use as energy source in there? And we would not find DNA because that is only in the nucleus. So it's just lipids and proteins. The cell membrane is, you could have put selectively permeable or semi-permeable. This means that it only allows specific or certain things to come in and out. It's not everything or nothing, it's just specific things. Diffusion, so particle diffusion. Start from a high concentration, you diffuse to a low concentration. Always causes particles to move for a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. Okay, what is the difference between passive and active? Passive, no energy. Active, yes, uses energy. What is the difference between endo and exo? Endo is, you could have said, bringing in or engulfing large molecules. Exo is expelling or having the cell membrane put out large molecules. Okay. When a sea urchin egg is removed from the ocean and placed into fresh water, the egg cannot survive. Which of these occurs? So, it is osmosis, so I know it's an osmosis because the particles don't diffuse, the water diffuses. So if I'm gonna draw it, here's my tank. Sea urchin egg is removed from the ocean, so the egg is salty like the ocean, okay? Water goes to the party, water goes to the particles, water's gonna go inside and make it swell and become hypo. So this is because of hypotonic osmosis. Which of these best explains why a freshwater aquarium would be a dangerous habitat for a saltwater fish? Exact same premise right here. Why a freshwater would be dangerous for a saltwater fish. The cells of the saltwater fish would absorb too much acid? No. The cells of the saltwater fish would produce too much protein? No. The cells of the saltwater fish would consume too much energy, the cells of the saltwater fish would gain too much water. So they gain too much water, good. Last question. Saltwater fish remove extra salt from their body by active transport. So I just saw active transport, so I know that's using energy through their gills. What is the result of this activity? The salt becomes more chemically active. Water balance is maintained in the body. That sounds right, I'll come back to it. The rate of energy production is decreased. Energy produced, energy production. Energy is not produced, it's used, so I don't believe that one. The cell membrane becomes less permeable to water. So if they're talking about energy using active transport to bring stuff less permeable to water. Water is always permeable. Water always is allowed to go in and out through simple diffusion. So that's not the right one. So I think the best is water balance maintained in the body of the fish. Okay, so B is the best answer. Okay, now we're gonna look at some test questions for tomorrow. This is the retest I gave. So this will be similar to your test. Okay. 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 This is that U-shaped tube that I think they had on maybe the Edgenuity. Okay, so it says there's tubing on both sides. This glass tubing is semi-permeable, okay? It's permeable to water, but not the solutes, okay? So you have a 5% starch solution on this side. That's the same as saying 5 particles, okay? Your hint that I'm going to give you today for the test tomorrow, I could say this is 5% starch, or I could even say it's 95% water. And that's actually going to be on the test tomorrow, where I'm going to give it to you in percentages of water as well. 10 mils of distilled water. Y'all, distilled water is just pure water, so no particles. So you have 5 particles versus 0 particles. Particles can't pass through the membrane, so water has to. Where's water going to go? It's going to go to the party from which side to which side? From B to A, okay? It's going to try to dilute this starch out so it gets to a very similar concentration to this distilled water, which is 0%, okay? the movement of small water. Okay, so I tell you it's small and I tell you it's water molecules is best described by which of the following? This is kind of a trick because I would say like 2 of them could technically work, but we always say the movement of water is osmosis. Okay, it's the diffusion of water, but it's specifically called osmosis. The stable internal condition in living cells is called, what is it called when you're happy, healthy, stable? Hypo, not stable. Hyper, not stable. Osmosis, the movement of water. It's homeostasis. Homeostasis is your happy, healthy home state, so that's your answer. Okay, this is a harder one. The swordfish has a selectively permeable cell membrane that does not allow medium-sized particles to pass through it. What is it called when particles move through protein tunnels into higher concentrated area? Okay, so at first when you see protein tunnels, you think it's facilitated, but if you're going into a higher concentrated area, it's going to be active transport. Okay, here's a picture. This right here, so this is the cell membrane, okay? These are lipids, this is a protein channel, okay? Right now, if I asked you what was going on, is it passive, active, is it simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, active transport? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 on this side, okay? Versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on this side. And it looks like it's going from high to low. So if you're going through from high to low, it's just facilitated diffusion. It's just going into a less concentrated area. Now, if we switched it up and it was going this way, fighting its way into the higher concentrated area, no longer is it diffusion or facilitated diffusion, it is active transport. You're actively trying to get through into the higher concentrated area. This is done to maintain homeostasis. You want even particle, even concentration on both sides. Okay, let's do 1 or 2 more. Okay, here's the paramecium. So this is going to be a question on your test tomorrow. Here's the paramecium, and it has a center vacuole. So it has a vacuole here. We'll talk about right now what would make that paramecium and that vacuole expand or contract. So remember, water is the movement, through the cell membrane. So why would water want to come in? Why would water want to come out? Remember, water goes to the party. So technically, if the concentration inside of the paramecium was higher than the concentration outside, water would move in, okay? If the concentration outside of the paramecium was higher than the concentration inside, it's going to lose water. Okay, so paramecium is a cell. It's a unicellular organism, and we treat it just like we do the cells, the egg, the fish, whatever we're talking about. Where's the higher concentration? That's where the party goes. That's where the water particles go. So water goes to the party. Okay, so we have a test tomorrow, and just study the quiz that I went over and some of these test questions, see if you can get them right on your own. Maybe pause the screen while I'm reading the questions, see if you can get it, and that'll be a great study tool.